Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Lincoln Riley, this USC program working their way through spring practice, and we're starting to get to that point where players are starting to emerge, separate themselves, and really put a stamp on what they're going to be heading into that 2024 season. Want to talk about some of those players that are emerging, but my number one takeaway from reading the spring practice notes, listening to these press conferences after spring practice, is the buzz around this program is extremely positive. The coaches, the players, they seem fired up for this 2024 season. Now, we obviously spent pretty much all Sunday breaking down the USC commitments. I don't know if it's the recruiting success or if it's the new defensive coaching staff coming in or if it's a combination of those things, but the vibe around this program is extremely positive, and that's one of my biggest takeaways. Excited to get into some players that are really starting to separate. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and a massive shout out to the USC fans. Again, we spent all of Sunday breaking down this USC program and what they were doing on the recruiting trail. The amount of support you guys were throwing down in the comment section was absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, you enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel, and much more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, some players that are standing out to you. My favorite part about spring practice is learning from you guys, talking ball with you guys in the comment section. So would love to hear some names from you guys as well. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with a guy that, we have seemingly talked about almost every single player on this USC roster heading into 2024. A guy that we haven't really talked about was offensive tackle Tobias Raymond, who came into USC in that 2023 class as a 6'7", 250-pound offensive tackle. We knew it would take a little bit for him to kind of get to that college football frame. Coach Henson comes out and says, if we're suiting up tomorrow and playing a game, Tobias Raymond is a starting offensive tackle for USC. And to me, that is massive news. We don't have that many question marks about this USC offensive line. I think most of your starters, right? Elijah Page, going to be a rock at left tackle. You have Jonah at the center position, Pregnon at the guard position. I think we're all excited about Alani Noah. That one question that we have is, what is that right tackle position going to look like? Now, Coach Henson said we're probably going to look in the transfer portal to add a tackle that has experience. But to hear that Tobias Raymond is starting to stand out and be a guy that USC can lean on in that 2024 year is absolutely massive. You got to give Coach Wiley and that strength and conditioning staff a lot of credit. He's up to 314 pounds. This is a guy that when you get into the high school tape, he is a phenomenal athlete for somebody that is 6'7", right? He's got that prototypical length. He's got that rare blend of the size and frame, but also the athleticism. The big question was, all right, can he put on some weight? How long does it take for him to put on that weight? Up to 314 pounds, maybe that play strength and that size is a little bit of less of a question. Tobias Raymond emerging as potentially a starting caliber tackle for this USC program is absolutely massive. And I think just from a competition standpoint, right, if you do go get a transfer portal offensive tackle, that tackle is going to have to come in and compete with a guy that has a ton of upside. In Tobias Raymond, it's good to be in a spot where you have multiple tackles that you feel comfortable with. And if Tobias Raymond can be one of those names, that's massive news for USC. And quite frankly, I was really surprised to see him generate the amount of buzz that he was generating. Tobias Raymond, really exciting. Next player I want to go to, and a guy that we talked about a lot, just did a film deep dive on, is Jaden Maeva coming from UNLV. This is a guy that, again, we talk about what he brings to the table. The first word comes to mind is upside. And Lincoln Riley said, hey, it's going to be a quarterback competition. I think Miller Moss, certainly the leader in the clubhouse. What excites me the most about Jaden is the way Lincoln Riley was talking about him. He gets asked about Jaden, he lights up saying, hey, Jaden, you can tell that he's played football. You can tell that he checks a lot of boxes of what you want in an elite college football quarterback, whether it's just being a damn good backup in the 2024 season and then being that guy in 2025. I think a lot of USC fans can be fired up about Jaden coming in and being a quarterback. That's exciting Lincoln Riley, right? If Jaden's exciting for Lincoln Riley, he's certainly exciting for me because there's not a coach in the country I trust more in terms of the evaluation and development of quarterbacks, then Coach Lincoln Riley. This is a good problem to have. You got two really talented players at the most important position of a football team, that quarterback room. Miller Moss, Jaden, very, very exciting quarterback room for USC, heading in to that 2024 year. Last player on the offensive side of the football that I want to talk about, and a couple things I want to note. One, this tight end position is the definition of up for grabs, right? There are certain positions where we have a pretty good feel of who your starters are going to be. That tight end position is probably not one of them, right? There are a lot of names that we're excited about. Who is going to emerge is that question. Joey Olsen, one, drawing a lot of praise. Two, up to 250 pounds. This is a guy that came in as kind of a 6'5", 220-pound wide receiver at the high school level. That winter conditioning obviously did some really good things for Joey Olsen. Joey Olsen's a guy, you go back to the high school film, ran an 11.29 in the 100-meter coming out of high school. You talk about matchup nightmare, 6'5" frame with the 11.2 speed in the 100-meter. That is going to be a very, very, that's a tough body for defenses to be able to account for in terms of the size and the speed. Now he's up to 250 pounds. I think the big question mark we have about Joey Olsen is, hey, can you run block? Can you get it done along the line of scrimmage as a blocking tight end? You probably still have those questions because, again, he is an early enrollee, true freshman. That being said, 6'5", 250 pounds. You feel pretty good about what the blocking might look like for Joey Olsen, seemingly a guy that gives that tight end room a little bit of a higher ceiling, right? I think we're decently comfortable with one of those tight ends emerging. What does the ceiling look like for some of those tight ends? Probably not that high. For Joey Olsen, I think the ceiling is awfully high. A very exciting name to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Now, moving to the defensive side of the football, I want to start with the defensive line. I think the number one thing that my takeaways is one, Lincoln Riley has stressed there is a lot of physicality that is going on in these spring practices. They're a little thin at the wide receiver room. And so what does Lincoln Riley say we're doing? We're focusing on what's going on in the front seven. Jide Abasari, a guy that we covered extensively when he committed to USC, is a very exciting prospect, and I don't know how much he plays for USC. I think you're looking at some guys that are going to start on that USC defensive line, guys like Bear Alexander, but something we've talked about a lot, and that is, what does the depth look like specifically on the inside of that USC defensive line? I feel like you feel pretty good about the defensive end position. You got a lot of depth. You got some playmakers. You got playmakers on the inside for USC. What does the depth look like? And we say this all the time. Elite defenses have depth along the defensive line. You have these big bodies. You got to keep them fresh. You look at Michigan last year. You look at Georgia the last couple of years, how they're able to cycle in really, really good bodies throughout 4 quarters of a game, 15 games of a season. If Jide Abasari can emerge as a very reliable rotational piece on that inside, that's going to be massive. And a guy that you talk about just looking the part, he's trotting out to spring practice. He looks like a guy that's been in a college weight room for 3 to 4 years. I think they've done a phenomenal job getting that body right, going back to the high school film. He is a freak show athlete for that size. This is a guy that I think was a diamond in the rough that USC was able to get late in that 2024 class, and a guy that I am extremely excited for, not only just in 2024, but what it looks like over the next couple of years for a guy like Jide. Next guy I want to talk about, and you talk about looking the part. This is a guy that looks the part. I'm trying to get like Braylon Shelby. Braylon Shelby looks like an NFL pass rusher, and a guy that is also drawing a lot of praise from the coaches. You talk about trying to, one, establish the line of scrimmage, but more importantly, get after the passer. Braylon Shelby is a guy that I think could emerge as an elite pass rusher in the Big Ten. You talk about guys like Jamil Muhammad, Braylon Shelby. I really like what USC has at that defensive end position, but Braylon Shelby is a guy that you listen to the press conference of him, he seems like he's established himself as a leader within this USC defense, which is rare. This is a guy that's only going into his second year with this program, but the way he talks, the way he's drawing praise, I am fired up for what Braylon Shelby looks like heading into that 2024 year. Last guy I want to talk about, Dan Lynn had some nice things to say about Jalen Smith, is Jalen Smith is probably the ultimate chess piece in this USC defense. Not really sure what he's going to do. Dan Lynn gave him a lot of compliments in terms of the versatility he has. And talking about that Dan Lynn defense, we talked extensively about it over the last couple of weeks. Versatility is a premium. We want guys that can do a lot of different things and give a lot of different looks to opposing offenses. A guy like Jalen Smith could play the free safety spot, can play the nickel spot, can play the box safety spot position. Excuse me. I am excited about Jalen Smith. I'm excited to see the ways that Dan Lynn decides to use Jalen Smith, but most importantly, excited about the fit that he has within this Dan Lynn defense in terms of the versatility that he brings to the table. And one thing that I'm really excited about is Dan Lynn, he specializes in working with defensive backs, right? He's the defense coordinator, but he even said in his press conference, I'm spending a lot of time in that defensive back room. Guys like Jalen Smith, I think, benefit the most from Dan Lynn coming in. Obviously, Doug Belk as well. My overall takeaway so far is, I mean, one, you're hearing from spring practice exactly what you want to hear. But more importantly, what Lincoln Riley's saying is the focus on physicality, right? I think that was the first word he said, is like, it was a good physical practice. And I think the biggest question mark we had about this USC team heading into 2024 certainly was a question mark in 2023 was, what's the physicality of this unit and group going to look like heading into the Big Ten? It seems like there's an emphasis on play strength. Obviously, the defensive line gaining, over 100 pounds cumulatively. You love to see that. Lincoln Riley, we talked about this during some of our commitment episodes that we were doing Sunday. That really tough season in 2023, I think, forced Lincoln Riley to be very critical of the program that he was running. And sometimes you need that. And I know I'm a Michigan fan. Some of y'all be frustrated about this. The year before, Michigan broke through and beat Ohio State and made the college football playoffs. Michigan had a losing record during that COVID year. And what happened was Jim made a ton of changes, not only to the weight room, to the coaching staff, but the culture of this program. And you saw it benefit that team for years to come. I am excited to see maybe that's a very similar situation where, hey, we had a season that, again, only 8-5. That is certainly a solid season for a lot of programs. It's not the standard for Lincoln Riley in USC. I think he looked at this program and said, hey, there are a lot of things that we have to change within this program. I think you're seeing those changes take place, and I'm really excited to see how that manifests itself in 2024. Those are some of the names that are standing out for me during the first couple of weeks of spring practice. Again, we're covering this team a lot during spring ball, a lot of competitions, a lot of new faces. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. Again, if you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.